Good to see you. How are you doing?
Good. Still
Isn't
alive.
it wonderful that we made it across?
Still alive, yeah.
The folks had their first opportunity to cross the Panama. Wow, quite a group.
Wow.
So what did you think? Fantastic. Incredible
Shame they didn't
engineering
let them get
feat.
off.
Well, today we're off on a journey to Costa Rica. And I just wanted to show you a little bit of what I took yesterday. And I don't know if you saw my little drone up in the sky following the ship.
Oh, yeah?
Actually, I love doing this because if you download Google Earth on your computer,
It looks like a...
you can sort of follow your voyages and put together clips like this on Google Earth Pro. Or you can embed them in your slide programs. How many people, when they go traveling, love to take photographs and then take them home and show their family and friends? Lots of photographers? Well,
He wants to see
I
them.
don't know about you, but I end up with a lot of photographs. I have some explaining to do.
I got the back end of camels.
And sometimes it takes me 10 minutes to explain a photograph like this. Or there's my bird pictures.
Oh.
And,
I can see where the bird is.
I just don't get the audience appreciation. So, I've almost given up. I've given up on family and friends. Well, a couple of months ago, Jan and I, we were on an expedition in Costa Rica. And I'll show you the route we took. Basically, you know, everyone starts in San Jose. Well, not everyone. You can go up to the northwest, Liberia. But San Jose, we started in the capital. We rented a vehicle and we drove around to Manikin, down here on the Pacific coast. And I'll tell you a little bit about why we went there. And then we headed up into the highlands, more into the mountainous terrain. And we were looking for Cattell, the type of bird, which is very famous in this area. And then we drove back to San Jose. We'd heard all sorts of stories about driving in Costa Rica. And we were a little bit trepidatious about this notion. And what I find interesting is if you go to Google Maps any time of the day and you put it on traffic so you can see what the traffic is doing, you can see that there's lots of red on this map. And this is, I just did this before I came on the cruise from home, but these red areas are basically gridlock. And then if you look carefully, you'll see accidents. So that was just a random time of day, and there's about 10 accidents. This is in San Jose, in the capital. So you can see we're a little worried. So we did hire this car. It's a Daihatsu. And I didn't really ask for a 4x4. But here's a little tip. If you go anywhere driving in Costa Rica, hire a 4x4 because it will pay off in big time. They do have really nice highways.
I don't remember that.
But they're not really made for vehicles. A lot of them. You know, once you get off the main highways, you're into some interesting terrain. But the highways, we found it actually incredible. The infrastructure is very good. Well, you know, I've mentioned before that we use the GPS when we go traveling. So it's very handy. They charge an exorbitant fee, like $10 a day. So if you're on the road for 10 days, there goes $100 for your GPS. But we use the combination of GPS and cell phone, and you almost need both. And you can get a SIM card in Costa Rica for, I think, $20 with all the time. So you know what the tendency is? We did this. You put in A to B, And then when you hit a traffic gridlock, you look for the detour. So this was the detour. And there were 4x4s on there, and this fellow with his horse.
Yeah.
But I realized that this is a common occurrence with people who use GPS. And there should be more signs like this. Because what we ended up doing was
Oh, that's from inside the car.
using this 4x4 to go on this shortcut. And this was right beside this capital city of San Jose. At one point we were wondering if we're going to make it. Well, the other thing that 4x4 came in handy was that we went on the kayaking trip through the mangroves. And they had us drive our own vehicles. But in order to get there, you have to drive where no ordinary vehicle would go. So
Over a beach.
it really is an advantage. But you get up into some incredible landscape as you travel around Costa Rica. It is really an incredibly scenic place to visit. Now tomorrow, how many people have an excursion where you go up into the highlands? Monteverde, up to San Jose, a few of you. And then most people are staying closer to the coast, I suppose. Well, as you know, I'm photographic support for my wife, who is a very keen bird watcher. And so here's one of my better photographs. There's a little parakeet.
Really have to hunt him. Aww.
Now this is cheating, because when we were in Cartagena, the rest of you went to the old town, and guess where Jan took me? To the aviary. Actually, there were about 40 of us, and it was a wonderful excursion. So I took these photographs at the aviary, and this amazing bird on the left is called the cock of the rock. I think if I come back,
That's what you want to be.
I want to be called cock of the rock. And this is the arikari, one of several species of colored arikari. Very closely related to the toucan.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who went on the aviary trip, I mean, we had a fantastic opportunity to see birds. Now, you may wonder, Jeremy mentioned this notion when he was announcing my presentation. Monkeys are made of chocolate. And you know, on one of our cruises, my wife Jan was in the book swap section up in the library, and she ran across this book, Monkeys Are Made of Chocolate. And it's this most fascinating story of Jack Ewing, who came from the States, and he and his partner bought a 800-acre ranch on the coast of Costa Rica. And at first it was a cattle ranch. It had been used as a cattle ranch. And he wanted to diversify. So he started trying different things like planting cocoa. Well, the problem was he could never harvest the cocoa because the Capuchin monkeys were eating his crop before he ever got close to it. It's a little bit like us back home with our cherries. We have, I don't know, 2 cherry trees. I've never had a cherry. Well, I think I've had 1 or 2. The birds get the cherries. Well, the same with the monkeys. So he wrote this book, Monkeys Are Made of Chocolate. And it was about his years of transition from ranching cattle through the cocoa years to finally having an eco-tourism resort. It's called Hacienda Baru. And he was very keenly interested in the idea of biological corridors. And I'll let him explain in a minute how that came about. But he has had this ranch entirely put aside as a national wildlife refuge, never to be developed. And in fact, he's worked with a lot of his neighbors to start working on a biological corridor. So this is Dominical down here. If you ever go to Dominical and you're expecting a town, do not be surprised when there's not much there. And this road, here I'll do the next shot. There's Punta Arenas. That's where we're going to be pulling in. So it's a few hours drive south. But this road was only paved 6 years ago. Before then it was this bone-jarring, bone-rattling kind of a gravel road. And I don't know if they have any graders in Costa Rica. I never saw any. But that's four-wheel drives come in handy. Well, Hacienda Baru, he has this beautiful resort. We stayed there for a week. And this fellow, his name is Jack Ewing. And he's done this incredible job that fits in so well with the theme of the country of ecotourism. Really, it is the economic driver for Costa Rica. And there's a shot of the Capuchin monkeys hanging out, relaxing. So it's a great story, and you see this happening throughout Costa Rica. And it's really only now that the science is starting to inform a lot of the protection that's happening, and we're realizing, and this is throughout the world, fragmentation of habitat is one of the biggest things. So if you can start linking existing parks and refuge areas through corridors, it changes the entire picture, and I'll give you some more ideas of what's going on. Before I start talking about these creatures, the coati, Jack tells this amazing story of before they had the biological corridor, they had this open pasture land, and the monkeys were trying to cross from one side to the other. And one day they were out there working on their fence, and a monkey one of these capuchins, was crossing the pasture. And they had a German Shepherd with them, a big German Shepherd cross, who saw the monkey and started racing. And these people with Jack were worried that, holy smoke, that's going to be the end of this poor monkey. Well, so he describes, as the dog raced up to this monkey, the monkey leaped up into the air, flipped around, landed on the back of the dog, and started gouging the eyes of the dog. And the poor dog was screaming. Well, there was no problem as far as the monkey was concerned. The dog hightailed it out of there, and apparently that was the end of his monkey hunting days. So, now, this is another story, the coati. Who are familiar with these? We have these up in the States as well.
I've seen those.
The southern states, you see coatis. Well, there was a period when the coatis became too numerous. And part of the problem was that there was no hunting. Traditionally, they had hunted them, but when they started preserving these areas, they said they didn't want any hunting. So they were eating the iguana, the young iguana, digging up the nests. But then the monkeys started to eat the young of the coatis, which was a little bit of a surprise. They thought the monkeys were eating more fruit and vegetarian. But they were happy to eat, if they can catch a bird or a young monkey or anything, or a young coati, the monkeys will happily eat them. So it took about 30 years, but finally now there's a balance. Pretty well good balance between the number of coatis and the number of monkeys. So it's, if you give it time and you give the rainforest ecosystem time and sort of protect what's happening, it will kind of put itself in balance. Now these capuchin monkeys, you will probably see them. They're all along the coast. They are very bright. They will use tools, and in fact, they expect to be fed if they have been habituated. So you don't want to feed the monkeys. And in fact, if you see people feeding the monkeys, I wouldn't even stick around. because the monkeys become aggressive. Well, these monkeys in that area are totally wild. No one ever feeds them, but they don't have any respect.
That's a monkey.
So I was out on this jungle walk with this fellow, my guide, up into the rainforest, and he took me up into the highlands, and we ran across a troop of the Capuchins. Well, no respect. Right away, the Capuchin turned around and tried to poop on my friend. And he said it happens all the time. They get to know the individual people, and there's the ones they like and the ones they don't like. And they demonstrate their dislike. So I want to ask you, who's the most beautiful of them all? I have some interesting birds I'm going to talk about now. I have 3 different species, and at the end we'll have a little vote. The first one is the Scarlet Macaw. Just a gorgeous, incredible bird. The size of up to 1 meter or 3 feet, and you may see them. They are in the jungle, the rainforest near Punta Arenas. These are very intelligent birds, and they mate for life. They're monogamous. They'll have the same wife or husband for life, and they have to train their youngsters. So the chicks stay with the parents for quite an extended period in terms of birds. And the parents have to teach them what to eat, where to go. And one of the things they do is that they go to the clay lick, because the type of fruit that they eat, quite a bit of the fruit has a bit of toxin in the fruit. And so they go to the clay licks. And what they do is feed on the clay lick. These were taken right around where we're going in Costa Rica. So hopefully we'll have a chance. Anyone signed up for one of these rainforest trips? I know one time we came to Punta Arenas and we went into Carrara National Park. Unfortunately, the Scarlet Macaw that I saw, other people told me was a Scarlet Macaw. It was a little bit too far away, flying by. And I never did really get a close-up view. But there's a good potential to see them in this area. And one of the best places to see them is these clay licks, where they go with the other parrots and they will actually eat that clay. And it kind of neutralizes some of those toxins from the different fruit that they've been feeding on. Okay, here's my next bird. This is where we went up into the highlands to a town called San Gerardo de Dota. And it's truly a sort of backcountry, mountainous area.
Oh, isn't that pretty?
We saw different birds, acorn, woodpecker. But another area where the four-wheel drive really came in handy. The combination was a little rusty.
That's what I was going to ask.
If you go to San Gerardo, That's where the Cattell nest is. They told us there's a national park for Cattell, but you're actually better off to go to this town, and they tell you, go to this abandoned house, and that's where you're going to see, potentially, have the best viewing of the Cattell. So sure enough, there's the abandoned house, and there's, every day, bird watching groups from all over the world. I think there were about 20 people in this group from Britain.
Can't see them very well.
Hard to see it.
So this is the female
It's dark.
Cattell,
I can see where it is, yeah.
and very difficult to get great photographs. It's not an excuse. But they're
dark.
always in the shadows, up in the canopy, sort of in the dark. But the big thing is to find the male resplendent Cattell. And there's his tail. That's my photo. Sorry, that's the best I could do. But this is what the Cattell looks like.
Wow.
Just a very incredible bird, beautiful bird. Particularly the male with the long tail. There's another shot. This is a good friend of mine, Gary Clark, and he's an avid bird watcher. And we met him on one of the ships because he's one of these fellows that has a lens like this. And I always look for the person with the biggest lens on the ship. Because those people are usually pretty good bird watchers and photographers. So here's a little clip showing you the Cattell nests. They usually take over an existing woodpecker hole and they'll enlarge it. But it's amazing that the male with a tail like that can squeeze into these little holes. They'll take turns building the nest, the males and the females. And there's another good shot. The tail sort of curving out. When we get to Guatemala, Guatemala is also famous for the Cattell bird. And what do they call their currency? Cattell. So these birds are very important to the rainforest because they'll eat the fruit, they'll regurgitate the seeds, and so they disperse seeds throughout the rainforest. But one of the reasons that they come to this place, San Gerardo, is because there are the wild avocado. And it's quite a small little, it's nothing resembling the cultivated avocado. But that's one of their favorite foods. So there's a Cattell, male Cattell in flight. And resplendent is a really good description. Now I want to show you the red-capped Manikin. So do you see the female there?
Yeah.
She's looking kind of drab. But isn't that male incredible?
Yeah.
He has the moves. We didn't really hear the sound, but they make a clicking sound with their wings. Each of these moves has to be down pat, because the female is right there examining the dance.
That's right.
And if he misses one step, forget about it. So these guys, they have to practice. Even when there's no females around, they're practicing. Because they have to get, I don't know, you do the moon dance, the moonwalk. How many steps are involved? They have to have it perfect. So this is part of the secret of the Manikin. Now you can see I have a word up here. It's the lek. That's the term for this staging area where the males hang out, and it's like a singles bar. And they have to do their dance moves, and then the females come by and check them out. And if they're lucky, that's it, they get to mate. So, but it's only the best dancers that get to mate. So there you have three beautiful birds. And it's a very difficult choice. I won't even ask you to vote. But who's the most beautiful? They're just all fantastic. Potentially, you could see these birds in Costa Rica. It would take a little bit of doing to see some of them. So what's happening here is called sexual selection. And you just have the alpha males who do the best dancing and have the right colors to do the dancing and get the females. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why the biodiversity of these areas is so key. And it's because of this idea of the resilience. All of these species working and interacting. In these rainforest areas that you'll visit, most of the action is happening up in the canopies. So we're used to being ground-dwelling creatures, but really up in the canopy is where it's happening. So if you use the eyes of a biologist on your excursion, as you go up into the rainforest, look for some of these complex interconnections and some of these stories. And you'll realize that here we are down on this layer, but if you could only somehow get up in here, that's where you would see some of the most fascinating stories. And anyone who has a canopy trip where you could get up in that area, you might see some interesting stuff. Now this is a search for a mystery bird. Does anyone recognize that bird? A toucan. That's a black mandibled toucan.
I've seen that.
And that is one bird that's fairly common where we're going. So there's a good chance that you will hear that call. And this other one is another arikari. It's the fiery-billed arikari. These birds, particularly the toucan, they have these huge bills, but it's not like a parrot's bill. It doesn't have a lot of crushing power. Basically, they'll pick fruit, and they kind of toss it in the air and gulp it down. But they will also go after the young birds of other species, and so they're not totally fruit eaters. They will eat meat. And that gives you a little sort of a size depiction. Now, some folks saw some toucans right in Cartagena. If you walked from the dock, you could see toucans right there, close to the ship. Now this is an interesting creature.
Oh, there.
The sloth. These are very slow creatures, and in every way, slow moving, and I won't say slow thinking, but slow metabolism. But they are very common, and there's a good chance that you'll see them. And when you look at this, up to half the mammalian biomass in the rainforest, they are so common, but they are very well hidden. Well, these guys, they form an entire ecosystem because they actually have hairs of the fur with channels to promote the growth of algae. And that's why they have this, it looks a little bit greenish, doesn't it? And they have a greenish cast because they're growing algae in their fur to blend in. And they only go to the toilet
Yes.
once a week.
They have to come all the way
They're
down.
totally living up in the trees. They're very uncomfortable on the ground. In some places you'll see they're being kept as pets on the ground, and I feel my heart goes out to the creature because they're totally built to live up in the tree. So why does it have to come down to the ground to go to the toilet? No one can really explain this. It has to come down to the ground, do its business, and then go back up in the tree. Very strange, and very different from what a monkey would do. You'll often see the sloth in this tree, called the Cecropia tree. And it has a very distinctive kind of a shape of the leaf. And these leaves, uncommon to many of these plants, don't have any toxin in the leaves. So they have to come up with another kind of a mechanism. And what they do is they provide a home for these ants, the Aztec ants. They literally have hollow stems, and not only that, they have a situation where they create these white things called Mullerian bodies, which are full of glycogen, and it provides the ants with food. So the plant is actually providing food to the ant, plus a home, a place to live, so that they will come, live in the stem, and protect the Cecropia tree. And one of the few animals that doesn't mind the ants is the sloth. And they love these toxin-free leaves. So if you see that kind of a distinctive shape of the leaves, look up in the tree, because there's a good chance that there might be a sloth up in there. Now this is an interesting little video clip.
Oh my.
Any idea what that is? That's a tapir. And they're a very distinctive animal. They are found in these rainforests of Costa Rica. But they're few in number. There's probably less than 1,000 of them. They were throughout Central America. They're the largest land mammal in Central America. They can get up to the size of a cow, and they're more shaped like a pig. But they have this incredible snout. It's called Baird's tapir. There's the youngster. They're very cute, blends in very well into the rainforest floor. And here's how the snout is used. It's almost like a small elephant snout, elephant trunk. So this Hacienda Baru, the notion is that they want to protect this area and form a biological corridor so the tapirs can roam back throughout this area, because they're an integral part of that ecosystem. And the idea is that if the tapirs come back, guess who's going to follow? The jaguars are the main predators of the tapir. And the idea is that if you have these top predators, you will once again go back to a natural ecosystem. Here's a painting from 1922 of a jaguar killing a tapir. The tapirs apparently have very, very thick skin, so it's not an easy thing for a jaguar to actually dispatch a tapir. But I want to show you this amazing footage here. Captured on the shore excursion. Keep an eye on that jaguar.
How did that happen?
Pretty amazing, I think. That's a full-size crocodile. And I've seen a couple of clips now where the jaguar sneaks up on the crocodile and doesn't have a lot of time or leeway for making a mistake. They basically have one bite and have to get it right at the back of the head and sever the spine, the spinal cord. And that's basically what happened there. But he did it sort of underwater. So it's just amazing. and you look at the size of that crocodile. So the jaguar is a very effective hunter. And they take care of a lot of the caiman and crocodiles in these rivers. The black panther is a melanistic variety of the jaguar. It's the same species, it just has the black phase coloring. But if you look really carefully, you can still see sort of the spotting on his coat. So it's a jaguar. We're going to be very close to the Tarcoles River, which is a famous place for crocodiles. That bridge that you cross on the highway, across the Tarcoles, this is the view right here. It's one of the best places in Costa Rica to see big crocodiles. And if you're crossing that bridge, almost guaranteed that you're going to stop and your guide will be showing you the Crocs. There's the view. Now, you would see a photograph like this and you think to yourself, would anyone actually go swimming there? Well, believe it or not, a young, I believe he was a Swiss tourist, went swimming there. He never came back. But you know, I would never do something like this. Dangling a little piece of meat for a crocodile.
That's kind of
This is not,
Appetizer.
That's kind of, yeah. And the arm is the rest of it. I mean, they can jump.
yeah, this is which one is the piece of meat? What's that, Darwin's Awards? Well, the crazy thing is, there are people who do this for the shore excursions.
Yeah.
No, not anymore.
And
Not.
the government is trying to
I've
stop
seen
it completely.
crocodiles, but I've never
Because the
seen
problem
anybody
is that
feeding
they're
crocodiles.
habituating these
They don't
crocodiles
need to.
so that anytime the crocs see people, they associate the people with food. And,
Then the people would come.
you know, you could be canoeing or kayaking through here and your arm dangles into the water. And you don't want to go there. Well, here's a photo tip. If you're really keen, I wouldn't stay up there on the bridge. You could get a costume like this and really get some close-up views of those crocodiles. Probably no safer than dangling a little piece of chicken. So here we are in the green area, in the rainforest, going back to one of these ecological ecosystem maps. The rainforests are mainly in this band, right around the tropics. You have to have that incredible energy of the sun. But they form some of the biodiversity hotspots on our planet. And these 35 biodiversity hotspots have been mapped and cataloged. Most of them are in tropical rainforests. They're just a tiny percent, like 2% of the surface of the planet. And yet they contain 50% of the various endemic species. So these are incredibly important and rich, diverse areas. 42% of all the terrestrial vertebrates. So here's another way of looking at it. And where we are is called the Mesoamerica hotspot. And it's a very important transition from the South American to the North American ecosystems and the related animals. And so this is why the biological corridors are so important, to have habitat that is contiguous all the way through. Well, back to our very important tapir. This is very unusual. You probably would never have a chance to see a tapir in the wild like this. You can see she's a little bit uncertain. And you would think, boy, what a fantastic opportunity to get a photograph. So imagine my surprise when I read about what happened to the Minister of Environment when he ran across a very similar scenario, a mother with a young tapir, and he was, if you can read very quickly, you'll see that he wanted to stay close to the youngster to get a photograph. And he kept following the young one through the jungle. Finally, the mother got ticked off. And enough is enough. Chased him and trampled him. And he fell over a bank, hit his head, went unconscious, and they found him wandering around, sort of in a half delirium. I think he was lost in the jungle. What does it say? In 2 or 3 days, wandering around. So it's kind of poetic justice that this was the Minister of Environment. And the wildlife was sending him a message that the tapirs are pretty important, and you better start looking after us. Well, you know, your chance of hitting or running into a tapir are very slim, but there's a good chance you're going to be seeing monkeys. So I'll just, this is not only in Costa Rica, but this is around the world. Probably the most dangerous creature you're going to meet. Sometimes they fling poop, sometimes they carry weapons. Problem is, the monkeys are so bright that they're figuring out they're not going to put up with too much guff from us tourists. Well, I hope you have a wonderful time in Costa Rica. You can have an opportunity to do all these things. Moon dancing, looking at caimans, and being trampled by tapirs, maybe pooped on by capuchins. You have a good chance of having that opportunity.
That last one is possible.
So lessons from today. What's going for some of these successful males? Well, we know that in the rainforest they have the full package. They have the looks, the moves, the colors, everything. They have it down pat. But what about on the Maasdam?
Forget it. Forget it.
Not much.
Forget it.
No, I'm just kidding. Come on. The men on the ship are charming, captivating personality, incredible humor, penetrating observations. So I just hope that the females on the ship appreciate. Remember, ladies, this quote from Voltaire: "Beauty pleases the eyes only, sweetness of disposition charms the soul."
It's not your dog, is it?